Hey, Sean Chandler here. This is my quick, immediate, right after watching episode 19 of Arrow Season 5. Wrote some notes down, fresh off of watching it. Hopefully you just watched it. I will be talking about plot points in this, so if you're going to watch it later, come back and watch this video later. Also, if you're watching this at a later time, no, I did record this live. That's why it's the way it is, and why I might interact back and forth with people who are watching live as I talk about all this. So for the last few episodes of Arrow, I think I'm going to try and do these reactions right afterwards, as well as Flash if I'm able to watch it. So with all that said, with my background with the show of Arrow, I loved seasons 1 and 2, and I was waiting for it to come out, like anticipating it, even tried to torrent it before it came out. That was how excited I was about it. And then seasons 3, 4, 5 have been really mixed. Season 3 was like 50-50. Half of it I loved, and then all the Oliver Felicity stuff I thought was just horrible. Season 4 was just all totally kind of meh for me, and now season 5 is another kind of 50-50. Around episode 6, I was thinking I might be done with this show, because it was every episode was Oliver lecturing his new team and Felicity lecturing him, and I was like, this is not why I check into this show. And then the last 10 or so episodes, it's kind of wooed me back a good bit. And so that's kind of even where decided to do a live reaction as the show kind of returned. And unfortunately, the episode I came back for is one I'm not going to give a particularly positive review for. Game Crew's watching live. Hey, man, couldn't do the Q&A, but I can do this for you. As for the plot of it, it's basically around Felicity and her new hacker buddies trying to stop the bad guys, and they're going to go off and try and hunt some stuff down, and they're doing some shady stuff in the process of trying to stop the bad guys. Through all of this, Oliver's not too happy, and this creates a conflict, and Oliver feels he must stop her from doing something unwise. So that's our general plot line. Hopefully you've seen the episodes. You know what I'm talking about. Blah, blah, blah. As for the plot of it, on paper, not like it's actually a pretty good setup. The idea that Felicity, in her effort to try and help Oliver to stop bad guys, she finds herself going down a path where she starts violating her moral compass and doing bad things. That's all good. That's actually a really good plot line and set up for great actual dramatic tension, because it's a moral and ethical dilemma of how far will you go to stop worse evil. That's proper drama and tension. However, our execution here, the way this actually plays out in the episode, it's just all of the worst aspects of this show. And as I said before, it's like the setup for it's all good, but watching the episode, we got some big problems. First off, I'll just say this real quick. The third act with a bunch of hackers becoming, Mission Impossible spies, breaking into super secret agent space, right off the bat, that's pretty ludicrous. I could get over it if the rest of the episode was better, but I'll mention it. With that said, we got two other big problems. First one, soap opera. The soap opera. I mean, it's supposed to be a superhero show, and I started taking notes on how many scenes in this drifted into soap opera, like sermonizing, lecturing, people suddenly having these deep emotional conversations kind of out of nowhere. 9. The 9 different times that this happened. And when I get into it later in this, I'll walk through how this plays out. And then once again, for the third problem with this one, is just the Felicity nonsense. They don't know how to properly deal with Felicity when she's not kind of the geek in the lair, when she's not Oracle, if you're familiar with the Batman mythology. Like when she's not the person back at headquarters with the double entendres, misspeaking, quirky person that's got a crush on Oliver. As soon as she goes serious, as soon as she goes vigilante, as soon as she's dating Oliver, as soon as she starts lecturing people, the character's charm just disappears. It's like sucks all the charm out of the show and just kills it dead in its spot. And because she became such a popular character, because she's so good at that one thing, they keep trying all these different things with her, and it always goes so bad. It always goes in the wrong direction. It's never plays out the way you want it to play out. It's so frustrating, and you see that once again in this episode where they make her vigilante person, going rogue, and it does not work. So just kind of like walking through, what makes this show really good? When is this show at its best? And that's when it's a vigilante show, the first season, or when it's a superhero show, season 2. And as soon as it starts drifting away from that, and the show's always had a bits of soap opera in it. It's always had elements of that in the show. It always will have. That's kind of the nature of what makes it kind of have this serialized, you want to show back up each week because of the fast-moving nature of it. But when it becomes primarily that, and superhero stuff is the side stuff, that's where you got a problem. In this, this show's at its worst, when Oliver's lecturing people, when Felicity is lecturing people about morality, usually Oliver, when there's just melodrama between Oliver and Felicity, and whenever it goes into an episode with lectures all about trust and lies. What do you have in this episode? Oliver doesn't do too much lecturing. Felicity is lecturing people throughout, you kind of just go through it, and Felicity lectures one of her new buddies about killing someone, and while you're watching it, just because of the show that they've established, the fact that she's lecturing someone on getting someone else killed for the greater good just comes off, it just seems silly. Like she goes off to work with people that she knows are shadier than the shady people she's been with that kill people, and she's surprised when they're like, someone died, it's for the greater good, oops. None of this should surprise us. It's what kind of happens. But she's lecturing someone all about it. And then we've got this whole plot line throughout the episode of Wild Dog and Lance talking about his kids, and you're like, why are we talking about Wild Dog making soup while drunk in custody battles on a superhero show? Like I said, 2 episodes ago, I was so back excited about this show, and it especially because there was a gap of 6 weeks between episodes. Coming back to an episode with just so much of the melodrama, so much of the soap operas, just really frustrating because they had a gap. You're supposed to come back with a bang, something exciting, and this felt like a whimper. And it's even with the episode that they teased in the end of the episode about next week, where it looks like it's going to be them stuck in a building and people invading. That seems so much more exciting than what we got with this episode, unfortunately. And so going through the episode, you've got Diggle telling Oliver to go lecture Felicity. There's 2 different scenes of Oliver and Felicity lecturing each other on doing the right thing. Diggle and his wife start lecturing each other on trust issues and stuff. And it's just frustrating, so frustrating to see all this stuff because there's so much potential. Big Tito chimed in saying that he's excited for next week. So am I. Next week's episode seems like the episode that I was hoping this week's episode could be. Now, I didn't know, see the tease for this week's episode, but next week's episode seems like one that looks like a good episode. That looks like what I watched this show for. There's an action scenario going on where they could be superheroes, and in that context with these 2 characters, of course they'll have character moments. Of course they will talk with each other, and that I'm not opposed to character moments. It's not that. It's when it's handled the way they handled it in this episode, where, as I mentioned earlier in this live feed, 9 times did they kind of drift into melodrama, between 4 different sets of people where they lectured each other back and forth, and then the action sequences were kind of underwhelming. It seemed like this was an episode where they were saving some of their better stuff for later episodes or something like that. And so really disappointed by this episode because it was on such a hot streak for a little bit there. And like the last 10 episodes I really enjoyed. And then this episode reverts back to all of the worst aspects of the show: lecturing, sermonizing, people yelling, I thought I could trust you. I thought you were going to tell me the truth. Just someone needs to go to their writer's room and say, all right, we got to take a 2-season break from any time someone goes, I thought you trusted me. I thought I could trust you. The lies again. What? They keep going back to that repeatedly, and they don't have something new to offer in that discussion. It's the same characters going back and forth saying the same things to each other. So all in all, a week episode of Arrow. I do plan on, like I said earlier, I had kind of almost checked out on the show entirely. I think I'm back. I'm going to write out this season, see how things go. I'm going to try and do these quick recap, live reaction videos. So if you watch the show, if you're watching this later on, no, I plan on after it debuts in Central Time next week, I'll be here once again to give my thoughts, and I'll try and interact back and forth with people. It's a little bit tricky to say coherent things. I've got some notes I'm trying to read, trying to look at the right spot on the camera, and read your comments. It's a lot of different things to do. But thank you guys for chiming in. Firestriker 225 just joined in, said Arrow's the best show. 50% of the time I agree with you. 50% of the time I agree with you. It's the best show. It's one of my favorite shows. When it's on, it's great. I would disagree that this season's the best season. I would go season 2 is the best season, where it was firing on all cylinders, the Deathstroke stuff, the right amount of tension back and forth. The fights were excellent. They had strong opponents. This season feels a little bit... It's like 75% great to me, 25% some of the weaker aspects of the show, especially the first few episodes with when he was building the new team. There's too many episodes where Oliver was like, I don't trust you guys, and things like that. So it was a little bit frustrating. So, but overall, I like this kind of thing. Big Tito says he enjoys these types of live reviews. Now that I can do them, I'm planning on experimenting with this quite a bit. So long as people seem to enjoy them, I plan on doing this quite a bit. I like to give my fresh reactions to it because I can overthink things and overprocess it. And there's something about just having that fresh reaction, fresh after watching it. I've got some notes just so I don't forget things. But so there we go. Johnny Torch just chimed in saying it's cool seeing a live show. I was actually just saying that I'm looking to do quite a bit of these from now on, both after several more TV shows, because there's so many of them, doing full reviews where I edit it and render in front of a green screen. Does a lot of work, but being able to just give fresh reactions right afterward, I can do that. That's not too difficult. And what I want to experiment with is reactions straight out coming out of a movie theater, especially with people I go with, and just kind of talking about how do I feel coming right out of the movie, as well as the reaction of the people around me, the theater experience. Anyway, so sorry, getting off track from Arrow. Anyway, tell me your thoughts in the comment section if you're watching this later on. If you want to join in next week, that'll be 8 o'clock Central Time when I'll be going live on it. Hopefully in the future can have some back and forth on the specific episode and the specifics on it. With all that said, I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully this experiment of going live afterwards will pay off. Talk to you later.